Students, in this video we will continue the same chapter, that is globe latitudes and longitudes. In the previous lectures we have seen what are these parallels, what are these meridians, or we also call them as what are these latitudes, what are these longitudes. So in that we have already seen about what are these latitudes, what are its characteristics. Now we will discuss about some of the important circles, or we also call them as some of the important latitudes. So what are these important latitudes on this globe are this? First one is this Tropic of Cancer, which is 23.5 degrees north. So this line, it represents this Tropic of Cancer, which is above this equator. So this one we call it as this Tropic of Cancer. Then the next one is this Tropic of Cancer, which represents the 23.5 degrees south, just below the equator, which we call it as this Tropic of Capricorn. Then when it comes to this Arctic Circle, this circle above this Tropic of Cancer, we call this region, we call this latitude as this Arctic Circle, which represents 66.5 degrees north. As we have already discussed in the previous lectures, how we represent these latitudes. As I told, we represent these latitudes by showing them in the degrees. Then the last very important one is this Antarctic Circle, which is just below this what is that? Antarctic Circle is below this Tropic of Cancer, which represents this 66.5 degrees south. So these are the important latitudes which we always have to remember. What are those again? Tropic of Cancer, Tropic of Capricorn, then Arctic Circle as well as Antarctic Circle. And as you all know, equator, as in the previous lecture itself I have told, this equator is something which we call it as this Great Circle, which is the longest latitude on this globe. So all these are the some of the very important latitudes on the globe. Then the other very important thing which we have to discuss is about this heat zones. Heat zones in the sense we cannot find the same temperatures everywhere on this globe. You see, some of the regions are very hot, some of the regions are very cold, some receive high temperatures, some receive less temperatures. Why? Because as you all know, the sun rays which fall on the globe, they are not same everywhere. There are some regions on this earth which receive more sun rays or direct sun rays. There are some regions which receive lesser or slanting sun rays. So based on this rays, how they are falling on this globe, we have divided our earth into three different zones. They are, one is torrid zone, temperate zone as well as frigid zone. So what is this torrid zone? What is this temperate zone? What is this frigid zone? So torrid zone means the region which is between 23.5 degrees north and 23.5 degrees south. So this particular region, that is almost in the middle you see equator, and the above up to this 23.5 degrees north, that means up to Tropic of Cancer on the northern side, and below up to this 23.5 degrees south, that is up to this Tropic of Capricorn. So this red color coated region comes under this torrid zone. Why it is torrid zone means we also call it as this high temperature zone. Why? Because you see here it is closer to this equator. This particular region is very closer to this equator. So when the sun rays are falling on this, if you see they are falling directly on this region. So that is why this region is known as this torrid zone. Then the next one is the temperate zone, which is found in between this 23.5 degree north and 66.5 degree north, as well as 23.5 degree south, as well as 66.5 degree south. So this black color region, which black color shaded region, we call it as this temperate zone. Here the temperatures are very less compared to this torrid zone. Why? Because as you see, the sun rays here are directly falling on this equatorial region, but whereas in this region the sun rays are falling somewhat very slanting rays. That means the rays are not directly falling in this region. So that is why we call this as this temperate zone. And the last one is this frigid zone. Here this region receives very less or sometimes they don't even receive any kind of heat. That is why this particular region between the 66 and of degrees south and 90 degrees south pole as well as 90 degrees north pole, so this region as well as this region, both the regions we call it as this frigid zone. Why? Because here the sun rays or the amount of sun rays falling on this region is very very less. Because of that, this receives very less and it is almost, sometimes you can say, frozen area completely covered with this ice. You see here this region Antarctica you can find here, and you can find this here Arctic Circle or Arctic, okay, so Arctic Ocean. So because of that, this region is known as this frigid zone. So these are the three important heat zones that are found on this globe. Again, what are they? They are torrid zone, temperate zone as well as frigid zone. Now we will see in detail about this meridians, or we also call it as this longitude. Let us discuss in detail about this meridians, or we also call them as this longitudes. As we have already seen the definition of this meridians or longitudes, those circles which are running from the north pole to this south pole in a vertical manner, those we call them as this longitudes, or we also call them as this meridians. So in the year 1884, some countries they have mutually agreed to fix Greenwich. There is a place known as Greenwich, very few kilometers away from London in Britain. What they have done is that there are some countries in the year 1884, they all have come together and they have decided that to take Greenwich as the starting point for this meridians. Like for all these latitudes, we have seen that equator as the starting point. Above the equator we have latitudes, below the equator we have latitudes. So in the same way, this Greenwich, it has been taken as the starting point for this meridians, and the meridian which passes through this Greenwich was taken as this prime meridian. That means the meridian, all these countries they have taken Greenwich as the starting point for all these meridians. So we have you see here different meridians or different longitudes are there, but what should be the starting point? So the starting point is the Greenwich, which is located in London, and it has been taken as this. We also call this Greenwich meridian with the other name known as this prime meridian. The other name is this prime meridian, other name of this Greenwich meridian. And same as like latitudes, as I told in the previous lecture, we always represent or we always show latitudes in degrees. In the same way, the longitudes are also represented always in degrees. So and so longitudes, we say that, for example, a country or a place is located in between so and so longitudes, and these longitudes they are always represented in degrees. It may be 1 degree, 2 degrees, 0 degree, or it can be anything. Then the prime meridian is marked as this 0 degree. That means this meridian, the prime meridian, it is marked as this 0 degree meridian, which is passing through this place known as Greenwich in London. And there are almost 180 meridians are there on the eastern side. That means on the eastern side, this is eastern side, this is western side. So from 0 degree meridian, from here to the eastern side, we call it as this eastern hemisphere. As you, I think, hope you all know what is this eastern hemisphere. Then from here to here on the western side, we call it as this western hemisphere. So on the eastern hemisphere, from 0 degree prime meridian, we have total of 180 longitudes, or we can also call them as we have 180 meridians from 0 to here. Then at the same time, on the western side also we have same 180 meridians, that is from 0 to 180 degrees. In this direction we have 180 meridians, and in this direction also we have 180 meridians. So there are a total of 360 meridians are there on this globe. And now we will see in detail about some of the important characteristics of this meridian. Let us see some of the important characteristics of these meridians or some of the important features of these longitudes. So what are the characteristics are that the first and very important characteristic is that the length of all the meridians is same, whereas when we discussed about latitudes, the size of the latitudes is not same everywhere. That is why we say that equator is the largest latitude or longest latitude. But when it comes to this meridians, when it comes to this longitudes, here the length of all these meridians is same, 0 degree meridian or 180 degree meridian, it whatever it may be, the length of all these meridians is same. That is the first and very important characteristic. Then the second one is that the maximum distance between any two meridians is at the equator. That means the maximum maximum length or maximum distance between any two latitudes is found only in this equator. That means here to here or here to here or here to here, only on the equator you can find the maximum distance between two longitudes, because as we go up or go moving up, or as we go moving upward direction, or as we go moving in the downward direction, the length between the longitudes gets decreases, or it decreases as we move upward direction or as we move in this downward direction. The maximum distance between any two longitudes is found only on this equator or at this equatorial region, and that too it is almost about this 111 kilometers. As we have already seen about these latitudes, between 1 degree latitude and 2 degree latitude, the distance is 111 kilometers. Here on the equatorial region, the maximum distance between any two longitudes is 111 kilometers. That too which is found in this equator region. So this is the very important characteristic of this longitudes. Then the next one is that the distance between any two meridians decreases as we go away from equator towards poles. As I just now mentioned, the distance between any two longitudes, it gets decreases as we move towards these poles, whether it may be south pole or whether it may be north pole. Whatever the direction we move, from equator to this north pole direction or from equator to this southern pole, wherever we go, wherever we move, the distance between the longitudes gets decreases. Suppose here the distance is 111 kilometers, but as we go towards upward region, the distance is getting decreased. Here it is 111 kilometers, here it may decrease, here it may even decrease. So like this, as we move in the upward direction or as we move in the downward direction towards this southern pole, the distance is getting decreased in between these longitudes. So this is also another very important characteristic of this longitudes. And there is also one more feature which I have already explained, that is on the eastern part of this prime meridian or a 0 degree longitude, we also call it as prime meridian, or we sometimes also call it as this Greenwich meridian. So from Greenwich meridian to the eastern side, the eastern direction, we call it as this eastern hemisphere. On the western side, we call it as this western hemisphere. So these are some of the very important characteristics of this longitude, or we may also call them as this meridians. I think you all must be very clear about what are these latitudes, what are these longitudes. Now let us see about this. How do we locate these places on this globe? As you all know that the main purpose of this latitudes and longitudes is to locate some kind of places on the globe, or you can see to find the direction of a particular place, or to locate any place we use these latitudes and longitudes. And another important thing which you all know, which you already know, is that the network of all the latitudes as well as longitudes together, we call it as grid, or sometimes we also call it as this Earth's grid. Earth's grid means it is a network of latitudes as well as longitudes. And why do we use these latitudes and longitudes? It is to know the directions of any particular place, or to locate any place, we use these latitudes as well as longitudes. For example, if you see this some of any countries or any place is located somewhere here, just imagine that our country India is located in this region. So just imagine. So that means how do we locate our country on this globe? By using these latitudes and longitudes is that here you see two latitudes are passing, one is in this direction and the other one is this direction. So between these two latitudes our country is there. So exactly if you take it is located 8 degrees 4 minutes north to this 37 degrees 6 minutes north. That means this 8 degree 4 minutes north is lying here. This one is also a latitude. Then the 37 degrees 6 minutes north is also lying this. So between these two latitudes our country is located. So just by using simply these latitudes we are locating our country. And at the same time when it comes to longitudes, you see here there is one longitude here and there is one more longitude here. So here also two longitudes are there. Between these two longitudes our country is located. What are these longitudes? Just if you take, it is 68 degrees 7 minutes east and to 97 degrees 25 minutes east. So here our country is located in the eastern hemisphere. That is why we have completely saying kept east here, and at the same time our country is also located completely in the northern hemisphere, that means above the equator. So not only India, to locate any place on the globe, any place, it may be small place, it may be a city, or it may be a country, or it may be any continent. So just to locate any place on the globe we use this network of latitudes and longitudes. So here when we take India, it is located between these two latitudes and these two longitudes. So that is the main purpose of this latitudes and longitudes.